Good afternoon, everyone. We'll give you some time to settle in for the next couple of hours. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 2021 Best of CAMA Professional Development event. I'm your National Chair, Robert Menzies, and I really want to thank everyone for attending and for our great lineup of presenters that you'll be hearing from over the next couple of hours. Whether you're here to learn what it takes to be a Best of Show winner or wanting to hear from one of 3 of Canada's leaders in agri-food sustainability, we are going to have a great couple of hours together. Our Best of Show is going to be featuring 3 organizations, Farmers Edge, FCC, CRSB, Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Crop, Beef, and Contact. And then our second part of the session is going to be Sustainability in Canada's Agri-Food System Coming Together. And we're going to be featuring 3 organizations here, Dairy Farmers of Canada, Bayer Canada, and we're going to get a second helping of beef from the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. I want to make sure that everyone gets nice and social. We're a marketing communications group here, so hopefully you'll be live tweeting or Facebooking or Instagramming or LinkedIning everything that you're doing or everything you're hearing today from our great presenters. So please show them some love and make sure you reach out to them. Just a little bit of housekeeping for today. So this event is going to be recorded. If you can't stay for the entire event, it will be emailed out to everyone. I hope you are able to stay though. And we're going to have 4 question and answers sessions throughout the next 2 sessions. And so I'm going to ask you to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen as opposed to the chat function. So any questions that you've got for the presenters for either the first half or the second half, please use the Q&A. And the moderator, Tracy Satishan, and myself will be monitoring that for any of your questions throughout. Obviously, sponsors are very important for us. So we want to thank 6P Marketing, who is our sustainability speaker session sponsor. And also our platform sponsors, Top Crop. And we couldn't do it without them to make us all look very sophisticated and sleek during this event. So I want to thank them and Annex and the team for supporting that from the back end. We have CAMA as national has 5 national sustaining partner programs partners. And these individuals that you see on your screen here, they came to the table with their financial support for CAMA. We've got lots of things going on. Hopefully you've all noticed that. And as much as we're a lean, mean organization, relying very much on volunteers and our support from our members, there is a need for some financial dollars throughout the year. And so these 5 organizations have come to the table to support us as we continue to expand and offer more value for our members moving forward. So I want to thank them. A quick shout out that tomorrow is the Academy Awards for Agri-Food Marketing, known as Best of CAMA. It is tomorrow, and a special bonus is if you attend is witnessing the launch of CAMA's new brand and expanded mandates. This is over half a century in the making. So please make sure you register if you're not already to receive the Facebook Live link. It's going to be quite the event for tomorrow. So not only do we have the Academy Awards, the Best of Canadian Agri-Food Marketing, but also the relaunch of our organization. I'm going to ask Tracy Satishan now to turn on her camera and unmute herself. Tracy is CAMA's National Vice Chair. She's going to be moderating the Best of Show presenters today, which ones you see on your screen. So I'll turn it over to Tracy to take it away.
Thanks, Robert. And I'd like to officially welcome everybody to the Best of Show presentations today. We're going to kick it right off with our first speakers. And we have Andrea White, Director, Marketing and Stakeholder Relations with the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, CRSB, and Len Kahn, President of Contact. And they're going to be presenting their Best of Show public, Eating Beef Can Help Heal the Planet.
Well, thank you, Tracy. Just going to wait for my partner in crime. So I'm Len Kahn. I'm president of Contact, and we were honored to work with Andrea and her team at the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. This is one of those beautiful campaigns where the campaign can be summed up by the tagline, which is eating beef can help heal the planet. And we know that that was a killer good line because it did draw some ire from some of our target audience, which was part of the intent, and also a couple of questions from advertising standards, which Andrea and I are not at liberty to talk about today. So give you a quick overview of the campaign. The Best of Show was for the website, but it's, and Andrea, you can flip ahead, but it's impossible to talk about the website without talking about the entire campaign. So as I said, the campaign was lovingly entitled Eating Beef Can Help Heal the Planet, or Can Help Heal the Planet, depending where you like your emphasis. And really, this was an attempt by Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. Actually, can I back up one sec? Andrea, would you mind just giving a 1-minute overview of who CRSB is, how long it's been in existence, and a little bit about its mandate, just real quick. I assume everyone knows that, but maybe not.
Sure. I was going to do that in my other presentation, but that's fine. Yeah, we've established in 2014, so a fairly young organization, but we're a membership-based organization that really spans the whole beef supply chain, from the farmers all the way through to retailers, food service companies, and beyond, you know, conservation groups and animal care groups, agribusiness, so sort of the whole gamut of the beef supply chain and everybody that supports it. So we have over 100 members, and really our focus is to advance sustainability from the environmental, social, and economic perspectives in the Canadian beef industry.
There you go. Thanks, Andrea. Something that Andrea and Mary both love about me is when I go off script. So, but that's it for now, Andrea. So CRSB is a fairly young organization, and I think it had spent a lot of its development to date until we launched this campaign, lining up supply chain, working with the food system, but not maybe going out with this messaging to consumers. So that's what this campaign was about. The website was kind of the anchor for everything we did, and that is the you know, what the focus of the presentation and the award was. But again, it's important to talk about the context. So this was very much a pilot project, and CRSB did something that I'm pretty proud of them for, which is they decided to take their messaging to what we anticipated being the most anti-beef, anti-agriculture group out there, and that is Gen X, Y, and Z right in the GTA. And we'll talk a little bit about how we landed on that. But so we had the website as a hub, and we used social media, and we'll show you some of the creative to kind of put out this core message, which is, hey, there's lots of chatter about beef out there, but did you know that eating beef can actually help heal the planet? So this was executed online and with social media, organic and boosted, and then resolved to the website. Next slide. The pilot was, I think, 3 weeks, Andrea. It was fairly targeted. We did not have a ton of budget, but I think it's usually better to do pilots at kind of a higher level anyway. So diving into the results, and I don't have to read the eye chart, remembering that it was only a 3-week program. We did get over 2,400 unique visitors to the site. I think most importantly was the amount of time they spent on the site. So remember, these are people that our assumption is a majority of them would be neutral to negative towards beef and skeptical, to say the least, about the concept of sustainable beef, and even more skeptical about the premise that eating beef not only could be sustainable, but could be good for the planet. I'm not a digital expert. I can't tell you that these numbers are off the charts great, but they were better than we expected and better than average. So again, a 3-week campaign that we reached almost 100,000 people, et cetera, et cetera. The best part is we won a best of show at CAMA, which we always love doing because we're big supporters of CAMA as well. As a result of what I would view as a positive experience, the site has been kept live. Andrea will talk a little bit about that, and it's been used by other beef industry partners. And the thought is, based on our learnings, that CRSB would like to push forward and turn this into a full campaign, always pending funding, which is, you know, the bane of our existence in marketing. If only we had unlimited funding. Next slide. So what the cool thing for us, so Contact, we do spend most of our life working in the agri-food sector, but I'd say the majority of it within the industry. So taking the kind of creative and messaging that we might use to communicate with farmers or industry organizations was not going to be relevant here. So what we did was come up with creative that would resonate with our target audience, which again, roughly is those under 40 living in the GTA who may either likely not aware of CRSB, but very aware of beef, may have declined in their beef consumption, may actually be against animal agriculture. So do you just want to run through those, Andrea? I think you should just be able to click. Next. Okay, so next slide. So really the magic in these is really the messaging and who we were targeting it against. It is, I'm not selling that as cutting edge, bleeding social media creative, but it was meant to be provocative and simple and to see if we would provoke a reaction. And then the core here is the website. I am not going to go through it screenshot by screenshot. Andrea, what's the URL again? I'm drawing a Beef for a Healthy Planet.
Beeffortheplanet.ca.
Beeffortheplanet.ca. I'd encourage you to take a look at it. That was created in fairly tight timelines, fairly tight budget. It was uniquely designed to be used with this campaign only, but because of some of the results, we have extended it, or CRSB has extended it, and we think it'll have a lifetime long after the campaign ended. Next slide. Was this me or you, Andrea? I couldn't remember.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, so overall, we consider the pilot a success. We did get engagement. We did spark conversations. A good chunk of it was negative, but not as negative as you know, the last federal election. So we did provoke some good dialogue. The tone, yeah, you know what? It's skewed towards we disagree. We disagree with everything you say. We disagree with parts of what you say, but it was more or less respectful, and we were able to create those engagements. Challenges, things that we might do differently on a full campaign. We were limited by budget. So is 3 weeks enough to do a rigid test? That's a really good question. We feel that the results were such that we have confidence in moving forward, but that was a challenge. This was right smack in the middle of COVID. So did that impact our results? It probably did. It's hard to tease that out. We did hide some comments because due to profanity and circular arguments, we weren't trying to provoke fistfights on social media. And then we did provoke a couple of complaints around the validity of the messaging itself. I think we're on safe ground with that, but as you know, anyone can take a run at you at any time. Miss Andrea.
So yeah, I'll just finish here with sort of what comes next and what actually we've already done in the time since this ran, but really continuing to emphasize those environmental benefits of beef production with that consumer audience. As Len said, this was our first kind of test in the consumer space. So, you know, we take what we learned, hopefully continue to expand on other campaigns, you know, look at longer campaigns, a wider geographical audience, obviously more money will get you better results, you know, making some improvements and looking at, you know, we tested out 6 different types of ads and types of visuals. And so looking at which ones worked better, and then we can learn from that for future campaigns. One of the key things, as Len mentioned, was, you know, we decided to maintain that single page campaign website as a call to action for many other things in our own social channels, both organic and boosted posts. And we really found that it has been really valuable to our members. So that was kind of an added bonus that we maybe didn't initially realize was going to be so valuable for us. So again, we learned that telling those farmer and rancher stories, you know, people resonate with that. And we're all about partnerships and collaboration at the CRSB. So really partnering with other people with those similar visions so we can kind of maximize our investment impact. If we all join forces together, we can do much more with bigger budgets and so on. And I just popped up our Canadian beef goals, which I'll talk about in our sustainability presentation later, but really that's been a key focus of not only the CRSB, but the whole beef industry over the last year, setting really robust goals up to 2030. So just a couple highlights that we've done since we ran this campaign last September. A campaign called Cooking by Degrees that ran in the Toronto Star that we worked with some partners on that I'll talk about it in a minute. You know, Canadian Ag Day, we did some TV spots with some farmers in Ontario. We've got a campaign right now through the Canadian Better Living called Foodscape. And again, leveraging that Guardians of the Grassland documentary that many of you might have seen, I'm not sure, that our friends at the Canadian Cattlemen's Association have put together. That's been really keyed into that message about the importance of grasslands and the intersection of beef production and conservation and biodiversity and all of those things. We've seen really great uptake and increasing demand for the beef through our certification program, and really a global interest in that sustainability of the food system as a whole, not just beef and not just crops, not just, you know, single things, but really the whole system. So thought I'd just share a couple of examples of kind of what we've been doing. We took that 12-minute documentary that our friends at our other industry organizations have created around the grasslands, and took some small, you know, 10 to 30 second clips from various parts of that 12-minute documentary, you know, really short clips that we've been using in our social campaigns, and they get really excellent engagement. So definitely video is, you know, king for content, is what we've learned, and those messages really resonate to people. People want to feel good about it. So that goes into that. And then I talked about partnerships. We've got something running right now with Canadian Beef, the CRSB, and also some of our conservation friends at Ducks Unlimited Canada and the Nature Conservancy of Canada, talking about, again, that intersection, the collaboration, and how everything is, you know, interdependent. And so some of the benefits of beef production also benefit the land, the animals, the birds, and the grasslands. So you can watch for that. It was a 2-segment campaign, and so the first one is in field now, and we've got the second one coming that's going to feature one of our ranchers from Alberta. So that's been a really great example. And that was all I had. Take it away,
Great.
Tracy.
Thanks, Andrea and Len. Great campaign. If a reminder to all the participants today, if you do have a question for Andrea or Len, please use the Q&A section of the platform today. I'll start with a question for Len. The pilot campaign, it was targeted at millennial, Gen Z, Gen X, Y, Z, urban in the GTA. So tell us a little bit about the research that led you to determine that specific demographic as well as the geography to target.
Okay. Yeah, so there was really kind of two branches of research. So some of the original research that led to the formation of Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, I'll just rattle off a couple of statistics. 45%, this was a massive 1,000-person study across Canada, done in 2019, I think, Andrea, 18, 19, 45% said they'd be willing to pay more for beef that has been certified as produced to a sustainability standard. 58% after learning about CSRB indicated that they'd be more likely to purchase a beef product with the CRSB logo on it. So general support for the premise. While roughly half of Canadians agreed that both reducing beef consumption and eating more certified beef could have a beneficial impact on the environment, they were more uncertain about the latter. So those were kind of general things. Being brutally honest, there was no formal research leading to this campaign. The CRSB has partnered with other leading beef organizations in Canada, and overwhelmingly all these groups, the management at all these groups gave us feedback that, you know, it's the younger demographics in the larger urban center that have the most issues with eating beef. So I would call that kind of anecdotal, but backed up by universal experience. So we had to make a call, limited time, limited budget, where else to go, GTA. You know, if you looked at Montreal, you get into the language barriers. If you get into Western Canada, it probably skews more positively than we were looking for. So it was a bit of a gut feel that downtown Toronto with Gen X, Y, and Z was probably our harshest target audience. So that's what drove that.
Great, awesome, thank you. This one is for Andrea or Len. As you mentioned, the ire you had gone through, particularly on social media and on the website, with the dialogue and the negativity. We know this is risky for an organization. How did you address those in a two-way conversation? Any tips? Because that's a big one.
I can start on that, and Len can add anything at the end. But you know, when we were planning the campaign, I think we recognized that the whole purpose of this was to kind of make people think and see if we could throw their perceptions on their head a little bit. And we knew that there would be some negativity. So when we were in our planning stages, we definitely like carved out some of those targeted responses, brainstormed the questions that we expected we would get. You know, there was a few extras that we maybe hadn't anticipated, and we kind of dealt with those as we went along. But so we prepared in advance with some key messages and some, you know, specific things as part of our sort of larger communication strategy that Contact was also helping us with. And this was kind of one project within that, was an actual social media, you know, plan and strategy. So having that decision tree of, you know, when those negative things come in, when do you respond? How do you do it? You know, our kind of a rule of thumb was like 1 to 2 responses. And then if it's not going anywhere, drop it. Is kind of, you know, and utilizing those key messages that we have put together. So, you know, that decision tree, and sometimes, you know, hiding the comments is the strategic move. So, you know, it depended, and Len mentioned a bit, you know, there was, of course, you're always, and no matter how much targeting you do and excluding the activists that you think you might get, there's still going to be some that it filters through and they'll comment on it. So, you know, and when some of those comments started going between the commenters, you know, we tried to, you know, and sometimes it got into not respectful territory. So we also had one of those blanket messages of saying, hey, this is a respectful space. So it's okay to have differing opinions, but please keep it, you know, polite. So, and that's, and we did go in and hide some comments because they were not appropriate. So.
And just to reiterate what Andrea said, I think the key part was being prepared. And a lot of our clients, when we get to the end of something and we're going to launch, no one has time to think about, well, should we do a little media training? Should we have our key messages? It's kind of the last step, and we engaged in that. And I think they were extremely well prepared. I think we did a good job of encouraging dialogue. You don't really want to shut off comments if you don't have to, but you don't also want to let the, the fringe elements on any side drive the conversation.
For sure. I love that preparation idea. So important to carve off time for that as part of your campaign planning. This is off script, but can you share a doozy with us that maybe you weren't prepared for?
Andrea, I don't have anything off the top of my head.
Oh gosh, it's been a while since the campaign launched, but the first little clip that we showed today that talked about some of our, conservation partners, there were some questions around how they were involved and, who's paying for what and some things like that. So that was something that I hadn't thought of. So, in that instance, we reached out to them just to make sure that they were aligned with what we were going to comment on. So that's, and there was a few activist things, although it's environmental based, there was still the animal welfare folks that, some of the targeting got to them too. So, the typical things that you would expect from animal activists. I'll leave it at that.
Yes, for sure. But time and resources, no doubt, to manage that as well. So Andrea, you're probably going to get into this a little further later on in our presentations, but sustainability is the topic. So how, with all the great results that you had around this campaign, how do you know that that message of sustainability got through to the audience?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a hot topic these days. And, I think it's grown exponentially even since we ran this campaign, a year ago now. So, one of the biggest challenges with sustainability is everybody sort of has there's no finite definition that everybody thinks of the same. And so everybody has a little bit different tack around it. So that's, we have a definition that we follow, but it's still very diverse. We've got, there's the 3 pillars and we've got 5 different principles and the topic is very diverse. So it's difficult to hone in. And so that was one of the things that we decided to, on our consumer research side, we know that, the majority of people, when they think beef and they think sustainability, they typically go to environment. And so we focused on the environment message because we know we have some good metrics and numbers from our benchmarking work, which I'll talk about later around that. And so we knew we had that science-based, background to fall back on in our responses. And so just to kind of focus the messaging, so we're not talking about everything all at once. And so I think, as Len mentioned, the metrics from the campaign showed a pretty high engagement level. There was comments and the click-through rates and some of those things to the actual website with the more fulsome information, which was our purpose. We wanted people to learn more and think and want to get more information. So I think from that perspective, from our side of things, it was a success.
Great, awesome. We have 1 minute left. Len, what is the single biggest factor in winning Best of Show for this campaign?
Yeah, it's pretty much taking the judges to a Leafs game and getting them hammered before and after. But aside from that, Mary knew all about it. She gave me the nudge and the wink, so we were good. It's always hard to say. The best at CAMA, I've been at this 30 years. It's vexing because sometimes when I think we put our best work forward, it doesn't even make a finalist. In this case, I think the site itself was clean, easy to navigate, single focus. So part of the job that Andrea had to do with her group was keep this site within the context of this campaign, because there's always more that we want to tell. And also having different types of content, so video, some text, graphics. So I just think it was a nice, clean, engaging site. It was easy to get through and you were left with something discrete at the end, not what was that all about. That would be my guess. But if anyone has tips on how to win best of show, I'm all ears, because we've only done it 3 times in my 30 years, I think.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for the presentation and great campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to our next set of speakers. We have Isaac Leclerc. And Isaac, I'm not sure your new job title at FCC, but I'm sure it's very fascinating, but you could share that probably. And Brody, Creative Development Specialist at FCC as well, and they're going to present their Best of Show industry relations for the hashtag We Eat Together video campaign.
Thank you, Tracy. So as mentioned, my name is Isaac. My new job title is Content Marketing Program Manager. I just came back from a secondment at the CCFI for the last 6 months. Happy to be back. Happy to be back with my friend and coworker, Brody Aikman, who is a creative development specialist. So we're excited to be here today. And it's honestly because this is a campaign we are very proud of. It is the We Feed Together campaign. That was our response to kind of the craziness of early 2020. And I think the best way for us to really explain where our minds were when we were putting this campaign together is to go back in time to what it was like in March 2020. And I know for a lot of us on this call and for Canadians from coast to coast, it was a stressful time. You would go on social media, you would go on the news, and potential supply chain issues were everywhere. You'd see videos of milk being dumped. You'd see pictures of potatoes, piles of potatoes rotting. And for the average Canadian, this was a scary thing. And I know for us at FCC, anecdotally, we would also go on social media. And during this time, it seemed like there was a little bit of negativity happening within the industry. So as an organization, we knew that we wanted to do something. We just weren't necessarily sure what that something was. And we knew that whatever we did, we wanted it to be based on some type of trend or a piece of data. And some data did begin to emerge around this time. So the first interesting piece of data that helped to guide us in this campaign was this. From March to April 2020, the average Canadian's interest in COVID actually dropped pretty significantly. As you can see, it dropped by nearly double in a 1-month period. But during this exact same time, Canadians' interest in COVID in relation to farming, agriculture, the food system, supply chains more than tripled. So Canadians not that interested in COVID at the time, but way more interested in their food. Second piece of information that will probably be a surprise to no one is at this time, Canadians were spending more time than ever before in the history of mankind on digital platforms, on social media. If we look at March 2020 compared to just a few weeks prior during Christmas time, the average Canadian was spending 36% more time on social. And for some of us on this call, that could literally mean extra hours every day online. And the final piece of information that was the most concerning for us was this. So during March 2020, the amount of negativity happening in the conversations within the agriculture industry in Canada was increasing at a pretty large rate. It tripled in a 1-month period. So these 3 pieces of information really helped to guide our thought process in this campaign. We knew that although Canadians were becoming less interested in COVID, they were becoming far more interested in supply chain constraints. We knew that Canadians were spending more time online than ever before. So whatever we did, it had to be social media related. And we also knew that our friends and our peers and our customers within the industry, there was some negativity happening. So we wanted to find a way to improve that sentiment. So all those things together helped us to craft this original problem statement. How can FCC and Ag More Than Ever create a sense of community in the agriculture and food system while the entire country is in lockdown and social isolation? So pretty early on, we knew that we wanted to take a 2-pronged approach. And we knew that we wanted to create some type of video that was a launch to some sort of campaign that could create some type of splash. And we knew that we wanted that to come through the FCC brand. But we also knew that when it comes to campaign videos, the average campaign video has a lifespan of a few days, if not a few hours. And if we're really going to create a sense of community and increase positivity, this needs to be something that lasts weeks, if not months. So we knew we then wanted to follow up with the Agriculture More Than Ever brand and really like hit home on that engagement and make our friends and industry peers and customers feel more optimistic. And also very early on, we put together some pretty lofty goals, I will say. We knew we wanted to create some type of hashtag and that we wanted to see at least 1 million impressions related to that hashtag. We knew that we didn't want this to be a campaign where it was just people watching a video. We wanted them to then act. So we wanted to see at least 100 farmers from across Canada post some type of engaging, positive content related to this campaign. And since the point of this campaign was all about positivity, we knew that we wanted to see at least 90% of these campaign mentions to be positive in nature.
Thanks, Isaac. So yeah, when it came to the creative, well, we wanted that video and that hashtag kind of as that anchor to build around and create that community. So we named the project hashtag We Feed Together. We wanted to create a hashtag that would elicit pride and a sense of community for the people who work and live within Canadian agriculture and food. We also wanted to shine a spotlight on how connected and important every link in the value chain is and celebrate that sense of community. The We Feed Together project also supports that growing consumer awareness of the Canadian food system and the essential people in it. So from the hashtag, we went to the anchor, which is the video itself. So the video, through a montage of the people who feed us, we wanted to instill a feeling of pride and appreciation within the Canadian food system, creating something for others to take and share in the industry with friends, family, and networks. So with the video, given the tight turnaround and the current situation of COVID, shooting anything was just out of the question. So this video was created in-house using a combination of B-roll from our extensive library, purchased stock footage, and footage from industry partners. And it was really one of the first major projects we had working from home. So it was really interesting and challenging to collaborate and create work in a relatively new way. And it laid the groundwork for how we would work together remotely moving forward. And as with this video, we started with the script. And as the creative lead and the writer for this, I knew generally what we wanted to say through discussion with our team and leaders, and I wrote from the heart. And that's what I love about working at FCC, is that everyone is so passionate about the industry we serve, and we're allowed to let that passion shine through. So these words truly reflect how FCC felt, but also how I felt at the time. So appreciative of this industry, answering the call to keep the true north strong and fed. The video was launched across our social channels in both official languages, posted organically, and then boosted on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And key industry partners were shown a sneak peek to heighten their interest before launch. So at launch, at video launch, an HTML email was sent from Ag More Than Ever to an email subscriber base of over 4,000. This included information about the intent behind the video and provided social links, making it easy to share. Some influential FCC employees also shared a personalized email to over 100 key industry contacts to notify them about the video and encourage them to amplify the message with their contacts. So enough talking about the video. Let's play the video now.
Food is a cornerstone of our families, our communities, and our country. And it's something that's on all of our minds right now. But with all of the uncertainty in the world, Canadian food is one thing we can be certain about. Thanks to you, all of you, from those who produce, to those who process, to those who get it on our plate. Canadians never shy away from a challenge. We always answer the call. Every Canadian has a role to play, and ours remains unchanged, providing safe, healthy food to Canada and the world. Food has always mattered to Canadians, but never has it mattered more. And even in times where the distance feels greater, food still brings us together. Thank you for your service.
That video that Brody just showed you was launched on April 27th. And the very first internal brainstorm that we had was on March 27th. So back at that brainstorm when we knew we wanted to do something, but we weren't really sure what we were going to do, 4 weeks later, that launched, and we were very, very proud of the results. And the launch day is another thing that made us so proud of the results. So this is a quick snapshot of all the different kind of love and appreciation and sharing that we were seeing that day. And a big reason why we were seeing this is because of one of those tactics that Brody had mentioned, where we were shoulder tapping key industry contacts, sending out emails to a lot of our friends across the industry, and providing sneak peeks to certain organizations so that they were able to know this is coming, what to expect, and then prepare for it. But as we know, the purpose of this campaign wasn't to create a video, it was to create some type of positivity and a long-term like sense of community. And what we saw after the launch is pretty cool. So the main tactic that we used via the Agriculture More Than Ever channels were we were able to identify conversations that were happening within the industry, and we would interject into those conversations and try to sprinkle in some positivity, or we would just find existing positive conversations happening and then help people become more aware of this campaign that was going on. We also shoulder tapped certain farmers from across the country, and we asked them if they had any words of positivity or optimism that they wanted to share with their peers. And this is a snapshot of just some of the few that were sent to us and sent to farmers from across the country. So because of these things, we saw some pretty cool results. The video, as mentioned, was launched on April 27th. It had a lifespan of around a week. And one thing that I wanted to mention is the ad buy for this was pretty modest. So we only put $4,000 into this ad buy. That includes all of those different platforms that Brody mentioned and the fact that we did this in both languages. And the reason why the ad buy was so modest is because the views of the video wasn't really what was important. It was the actions from that video. And we knew that that meant organic engagement. But regardless, in that 1 week period, we saw over 400,000 views and over 750,000 impressions. But the part of this campaign that kind of really made us go, whoa, was what happened in the 2 months prior to that. So these were those original objectives that I had showed you earlier. And we ended up seeing over 23 million impressions on the hashtag. We ended up seeing over 400 farmers across Canada actively creating positive pieces of content related to the campaign hashtag. And over 96% of all campaign mentions were positive. Very exciting stuff.
Yeah. And all of these positive results were an indicator that the message was both effective and reflective of the wonderful industry we're proud to serve. The response on launch showed that the message resonated, and the way the industry rallied around it and shared their words of encouragement reflected the nature of the industry we set out to celebrate. An essential, driven, compassionate industry, ready to serve a nation and support each other. So with that, I thank you for your time and ask if there's any questions.
Thanks, Brody and Isaac. A reminder to our attendees again to please use the Q&A section of the platform if you have any questions for Isaac and Brody today. I am going to start probably with Brody on this one and just talk about creative production. You mentioned that you had started this at pretty much at the beginning of the pandemic. Any challenges that you saw from an in-house agency perspective, and how are you doing things today, maybe with starting off this process that helped you move forward in your processes, or
Well, first of all, just if you like, say when we travel back to that time, we're all in a week into a lockdown, right? So like, again, we're all picked up our computers and left the office. So again, our team is very collaborative, very face-to-face. And, we do lean on and use technology a lot, but our strength is always our face-to-face and our collaboration and our teamwork, because we have such a great team of experts. So we just had to learn to navigate that around the simple fact that everyone was scared, trying to, this project was not only a great thing to work on from a pride thing, but also a welcome distraction on the world that was burning outside, to be honest with you, because it also, all the fears that consumers have, we had as consumers, but we have the confidence of knowing this value chain and knowing that it's going to be there for us. So I think we felt a responsibility to herald that and also celebrate this industry. As far as like processes, I think it was just a real baptism by fire thing, right? It was one of those things where I think we learned a lot of things about approval processes and even how to pitch digitally to our leaders and have those conversations, and just really using the technology to be more agile, be more iterative, and really be more collaborative. And really a tool that we thought would be a hamper to how we work, but actually helped us to be very collaborative because we could be very collaborative within the moment. So it was just one of those things where, you know, learning and baptism by fire and just kind of learning from your mistakes. So yeah.
Great, awesome. Isaac, the big success measure was around the hashtag. So the dialogue amongst the industry really contributed to this success. How much work was it from, you know, your team's perspective on engaging with the industry, or did you feel like it was really more organic growth?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about like the dialogue within the industry is that was our main campaign measure, but it was also the main inspiration for the campaign, right? If we remember at the beginning there, we were seeing that negativity within the industry, and knowing that our customers and our industry peers were feeling, quite honestly, the same way that all of we were, as Brody had mentioned, we knew that we wanted to do something. And the cool thing was, in non-COVID times, if we use social listening tools like Brandwatch, positivity within Canadian agriculture is normally in an insanely high range. It's like 95% plus, always positive comments. So we knew as an industry, the positivity and optimism was there. We just needed to find a way to foster that. And through the video and a little bit of like shoulder tapping and encouragement through Egg More Than Ever, it was able to happen.
Awesome. We have a few minutes left. So question for either one of you. What do you think was the single biggest factor in winning Best of Show at CAMA this year, or this past year?
So Brody and I will probably have different answers. If you were to ask me personally, I would say we put all the time into making this big, beautiful, inspiring piece of content. But if you were to ask us internally, we didn't necessarily care how the video performed, because we were kind of really led by that problem statement. Like we knew how our peers were feeling. We knew what we were seeing online. We knew that we wanted to find a way to up positivity, not necessarily make ourselves feel good with a big video campaign. And I mean, once again, we were somehow able to do it, not on our own, but through collaborating with all the different partners on this call and our followers on Egg More Than Ever, and yeah.
And I agree with him. You know, the video is beautiful and we're proud of it, but it's a springboard. And you know, and marketing, you put all your care, your love, your art into the thing, but again, the thing is something that gets you results. So again, back, like Isaac said, back to the problem statement, we're so proud of the thing we created, but we're 1,000 times more proud of the results, because not only did it confirmed what we already knew, that this is a wonderful industry that's going to be there for each other when times are tough, when times are good, anytime. And yeah, it was a joy to work on, and it's just something so proud. Being in this industry for a decade now myself, I was just so proud to work on this. Like I said, these words came from FCC's heart, but they came from my heart as well. So sorry, I'm getting a little verklempt, but it was just, I'm very proud of it. Proud of the video, but more proud of the results and the community rallying around it.
Okay, great, awesome. I have one question from our attendees here. You mentioned that you interjected yourself in conversations that were already happening on social. Can you speak more to that, and how did that work from an execution lens?
Social listening software, and the software of choice at FCC is Brandwatch. So basically what we were able to do was, I hope I'm not getting too technical for some of you, but we created a query in order to figure out the different conversations that were happening amongst producers and people that work within the industry. And then we could filter that by sentiment. So we were able to interject into those conversations, meaning we would find a picture of like a happy looking family during a time when a lot of people were feeling stressed out. And then we would go into those conversations, speak with those producers. Sometimes we would have facilitated conversations in direct messages. And through that, we were able to identify the content that we could then share through the Egg More Than Ever channels. So without social listening, it would have been a tough job. Would have been a lot of like organic searching on Twitter. But yeah, mostly through sentiment filtering.
Great. All right, if there's no other questions, thank you again for your presentation. It was great. And we'll move on to our next set of speakers. I'm just going to, we have, or just one speaker, Ginger Lorenz, VP of Marketing with Farmers Edge. And she is going to present the Best of Show digital campaign, Intern Olympics.
Great. Well, can you guys see me okay?
You bet.
Perfect. I will share my screen. Thank you. Sorry about that. Of course, you can get ready and that's where you go. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm excited to be talking to you today about Intern Olympics that we hosted here at Farmers Edge. And it's been very exciting to hear about the other campaigns here on the call. And interesting, as ours is definitely a little bit of a different direction, whereby we've been hearing a lot today about changing the message within agriculture and supporting that message. Our focus here at Farmers Edge for our Intern Olympics was to really engage the next generation in the conversation about agriculture and get them excited about careers in this field. At the same time, here at Farmers Edge, our goal is to always use every marketing initiative as an opportunity to meet some of our other goals within the company. And so today I'm going to talk to you about how this project did just that. Now, for those of you who don't know who Farmers Edge is, we are a global leader in digital agriculture. We are currently operating across 6 countries around the globe, and we provide precision agriculture and data management services to farmers. Our goal is to provide farmers with the data and insights they need, as well as connecting them to their advisors across the digital agricultural ecosystem so that they can make better decisions, grow more sustainably, increase crop production, and lower carbon emissions, as well as capitalize on all of the sustainability efforts that they put forward. So Farmers Edge, we believe we're for farmers and founded by farmers. And our mission is to support them in any way we can. And Intern Olympics definitely helped us do that as well. Now, within our marketing department, our goal is always to, increase sales and drive more acres. But at the same time, we face challenges to meet those goals. And in order to drive sales, it means we need high quality talent on our team. It means we need compelling messages and testimonials of the case studies and experiences of the customers we currently work with. And so some of the challenges that we face at Farmers Edge is gathering that compelling content from the field. Now, my marketing team, we have, I think, about 14 people on our team now, and we all work out of the Winnipeg office. And with over 450 employees across the globe, we don't always have that direct connection to them to understand how they're interacting with farmers and the experience that they're providing. And so our challenge within the marketing department is gathering that compelling content from the field, gathering those stories and encouraging our internal teams to go above and beyond their roles and submit content to us, take pictures for social media. And I'm sure at every company, there's always team members that are great at it and some, of course, that couldn't bother. And so we looked at this challenge and Intern Olympics as an opportunity to build a bridge between marketing and the field. Now, another challenge we faced was having our influencers that utilize our products really engage online. We always feel we have to do a little bit of babysitting. Well, I do apologize about that. There is an emergency alert in the background. And so that was not expected. I'm sure some of you may be getting that to your phone as well if you're in Manitoba here. So I do apologize about that. Hopefully there isn't another one here. With our influencers, we do find we have to do a little bit of babysitting to encourage them to post, to remind them to share content. And we do work with a variety of influencers at Farmers Edge. And we love the content that they post, but we do feel we have to feed them with some of that content. And so we looked at Intern Olympics again as an opportunity to have students engage in this process. And finally, we're always looking for the highest quality talent to join our team, be excited about agriculture, and move into future roles and careers within the company. Farmers Edge has very high retention rates for our employees, and our focus is always growing our teams from within. And so we do what we can to introduce students and interns and get them in the door so that they can grow an opportunity with Farmers Edge and really grow their career. So when we faced all these challenges and we knew that the summer was coming, and every year at Farmers Edge for the past few years, we've hired anywhere between 30 to 40 interns across Canada and the USA to work directly in the field with our customers and our client success managers. And so these students have the experience of doing much more than the typical internships we hear about, where they may have to install field signs or make deliveries. These students are in the field working hand in hand with our farmers, showcasing tools within our platform, Farm Command. And Farm Command features a variety of tools from growth stage models and satellite imagery for students to really create and form conversations with farmers and get them engaged in using the tools, getting them excited about the tools, and showcasing the value that the tools can bring to their farm. So with this in hand, we looked at developing a fun competition for the interns to support marketing in meeting these challenges. And I definitely want to give credit to a former employee of ours who really took this idea and launched it. And we're proud to have been able to continue it and plan to continue year after year. So Intern Olympics was developed as a friendly competition amongst our interns to support the generation of high quality content and the delivery of a superior customer experience. And that means showcasing tools hand in hand while supporting marketing and generating case studies and examples of how to use our product in the field. The campaign we had at hand was for the interns to capture and create content on the job, post to a Farmers Edge branded digital ag Twitter account, and generate the highest levels of engagement as well as the most compelling content. Of course, engagement we measured across Twitter, and in terms of content being the most compelling, we hosted internal contests and surveys within our company to really engage other team members in the work the interns were doing out in the field. Now, when we talked about giving access to a corporate account to 30 to 40 different students, we got a lot of questions. What if they make mistakes? What if they don't say the right things? They're not experts on the product yet. But we wanted to take this initiative and take that chance to really give these students and these interns the opportunity to show us what they can do. We know that they are a generation of social media. And so with that, we had trust in them that they would be able to take on this challenge of managing the account and get excited by it. But at the same time, we knew we had to set some critical success factors. So the first and most important one is building trust with them. And our focus was to give them access to the account and show them that we do trust them. And of course, we set up parameters with so many people having access to single passwords at certain times. And we divided them into different teams to really manage how many people were posting. Additionally, we made them sign each post with their initials so that we could start to track and monitor if there are any, active spelling mistakes or information was misposted. But when we launched Intern Olympics, we were honest with our followers that these are students and they're here for the summer, and they're here to showcase everything they're learning about the products. And for us, that meant generating a lot of content for marketing that could then be used to promote the product. So we made it into a very friendly competition, and we created these little Bitmojis for all of the teams and posted with this style and theme of the campaign across Twitter throughout the summer. So anytime there was a new team taking over the account, we would post images like this to showcase who is online. And within marketing, we actually had a couple of our own interns helping to manage the creation and generating all of this content, along with the back and forth between the team of interns. Now, we also knew we had to motivate and inspire these interns and make sure that they're excited about posting and excited about the tools. So we did assign team coaches, which were internal employees at Farmers Edge, our product marketing managers and digital ag specialists, all participated to lead the teams and encourage them and give them ideas on what they can post and when they should post. And then finally, we gave them prizes. What better way to incentivize a college or university student than throwing a few $100s to Amazon for them? And so marketing set aside about $3,000 for prizes for the students. And in return, was able to generate a very high amount of high quality content. And of course, we would throw prizes at them throughout the competition to keep that content coming. And if there was ever really great testimonials, video testimonials coming through from our customers that they were submitting to us or posting on Twitter, then we would reward them to try to showcase to the other interns that the better content they get, the more prizes they can win. So in the background here, I'll talk over just a few of the types of tweets that they were able to put together. You'll see a short video featuring a compilation of tweets from the account. And so we encourage them to start small and go big. Now, we knew we had to get the interns comfortable with posting and understanding what to post. And as the weeks in the summer rolled through, they started getting a lot more comfortable. So we encouraged them to post how to use products in Farm Command, new updates within our platform, quotes and testimonials from our customers. But we also encourage them to have fun and be playful on the accounts and really showcase their personality. And with that, we found that the interns were able to encourage each other and gather even more compelling content, as well as great photography that we were able to use within other campaigns at Farmers Edge. So looking at the results, what did this do for us? Well, it gave us hundreds of tweets from the interns, which we organized and categorized into different areas of content that we can reuse into advertisements or case studies to promote and drive more sales at Farmers Edge. It was an account that our sales team could use and encourage other farmers they were talking with to explore and follow if they really want to see these tools in action. We received thousands of likes and engagements. We received interest from media wanting to showcase what we were doing with interns and how we were getting them involved in agriculture. And finally, we had an increased interest in careers at Farmers Edge. Now, we always say at Farmers Edge, we're not agriculture and we're not technology, we're ag tech. And a lot of students don't think about ag tech as a career. And so we've made it as a part of our mission to really get that generation engaged. And these internships really offer them an opportunity to do that. And on top of that, in utilizing the interns and working with them and encouraging them to expand their skill sets into things like social media and marketing that they may not have considered before. For anybody on the call that is living in Manitoba right now, you're probably familiar with the Ag Business program at U of M, which is where many of our interns within Manitoba come from. And across the US and Canada, those seem to be the most common programs: precision technology, Ag Business, and a lot of students that are not exactly sure what way they want to go. So this internship gives us an opportunity to see how they work, get to know them, and find the right place for them to grow into our company, whether that's agronomy, whether that's marketing, whether that's technology. There's a lot of opportunities. And now I mentioned we did grow our engagement on this campaign, and we did release it 2 years in a row now, and we will continue in future years. So year after year here, from the first year to 2021, we did have a 52% increase in engagements online, and we plan to double that again next year with the interns that we'll be bringing on board. So with that, I thank everybody for joining us today. Our Intern Olympics program is something that really took off bigger than we had even expected it to. Our goal was really to engage interns and gather content, and it really blew up into something where they impressed us as well. And we received a lot of media attention and a lot of opportunity to really capitalize on the content that was generated. So our lesson from that within our marketing department is to continue thinking of ways to really double down, triple down on the content that you can generate and develop to see how it can meet goals across a variety of sectors or a variety of areas within the company. So with that, thanks everybody for joining.
Great, thanks, Ginger. Super fun, cool. I'll remind everybody once again that if you have questions for Ginger, just pop them in the Q&A and I will get to them. You mentioned that the social media accounts were handed over and that you wanted to ensure that level of trust with the interns. You know, we know that this could potentially expose brands to risk. Did you have to sell this idea?
We definitely had to sell the idea. And, you know, from marketing standpoint, we looked at, you know, hiring a full-time person that's going to manage the account full-time that we have to send out across the US, across Canada. That's a much bigger expense than allowing our interns to take over a Twitter account, being honest with the followers that are on it. But it definitely took some convincing, but with the numbers of showing the amount of content we were able to generate from it and the reach we were able to extend for the cost of that risk versus the cost of marketing it, you know, was a big difference. And so that's what helped make that decision.
For sure. Tough to identify that ROI at the beginning, but it eventually came, right?
That's right.
So you do mention as well that engagement was really high with the interns on social media. Did you see any increases of sales of your product during this time too as well?
Well, this is during our busiest sales time. So definitely we have an offer at Farmers Edge. We call it our Progressive Grower Program. And our interns were definitely relaying that out to people in the field as well. We saw the biggest piece of this for us was retention. versus new sales. Our goal was to ensure customers had a great experience so that they would re-sign their contracts the following year. So in terms of new sales, I think that we had a bigger focus on retention rates. Our solution is sold on a subscription, therefore farmers re-sign, and with that, that's where we saw the biggest results.
Awesome, great. Quickly, what do you believe was the single factor in winning Best of Show for your campaign?
For sure. Well, I think it was the interns, to be honest. I think they really shine a light on what they were able to do and what that next generation is able to do, and how they're able to share that message for agriculture, because that is the goal. And they're excited about it, and they're excited about sustainability. And I do believe that, they took the campaign kind of in a life of their own and made it into something that was really powerful. I think our Bitmojis people liked as well, but definitely the interns brought it together.
Great, and great succession plan you have for your organization. That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Ginger, and thank you again to all of our participants today, presenters, and our Best of Show presentations. And I will hand it once again over to Robert.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tracy. Yeah, I want to do a quick thanks to CRSB, FCC, and Farmers Edge. And Ginger, rest assured that I also got that emergency alert. I just wasn't on camera at the time. So thanks for working through that for us. And of course, Tracy for moderating that session. So I'm back, Robert, Chair of CAMA National. And so I'm here to moderate Sustainability in Canada's Agri-food System Coming Together. We're going to be hearing from Dairy Farmers of Canada, Bayer Canada, and as mentioned earlier, Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef will be coming back. So Brent, this time I'm going to ask you to turn on your camera and mute yourself for me. I would like to thank 6P Marketing for their sponsorship of this session. 6P is also the firm that volunteered their significant time in the CAMA rebrand that we'll all be seeing tomorrow during the unveil at Best of CAMA. Brent is 6P's Director of Strategic Consulting. So Brent, I'll turn it over to you to introduce our topic this afternoon.
All right, thank you very much, Robert, and good afternoon, everyone. I was first introduced to sustainable development actually in my very first job a long time ago when I was a marketing director of Planet Recycling in Manitoba. The International Institute of Sustainable Development gave us an award for our work. And so that's when I first learned about what the 3 pillars were, because to be honest, we were doing it without realizing it at the time, but they wanted to use us as a showcase back then. And I learned the three pillars, as you're no doubt all aware: economy, society, and environment. You can exchange terminology here and there, but fundamentally that's what the 3 pillars or corners of a triangle have always been. And I'll use these 3 pillars just to share a little bit of my own story. So starting with the society pillar, I'm Brent Smith. I'm a human being like you. I'm not just a consumer. I'm a human being first, one who cares about my family and friends. A person who wants to make the community that I live in a better place. And knowing that as my community improves, my life improves. The next sustainability pillar is economic, knowing that these aren't they don't go sequentially, they all matter equally to make it all work. So on my economic pillar, I need to make a living just like you do. Food, water, shelter, I need a job so that I can keep on living. And so to support this pillar, I've served many clients over the years, from Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Crops, Ducks Unlimited, Nature Conservancy Canada, Manitoba Pork, Power Smart, part of Manitoba Hydro Conservation Program there, and Canadian Federation of Agriculture, just to say a few. And in all of those instances was developing sustainability messaging on their behalf. And still under my economic pillar, my daily job is to lead a full service marketing firm, 6P, of 30 people, not there to help lead, pardon me, with much of our consulting work, which I do lead in public trust, social license, and sustainability communications. My third sustainability pillar is the environment. I care, like most of you do, deeply about the future well-being of our planet, because as we come to learn, as it suffers, we suffer in different ways. And I've been very fortunate to have a vocation that aligns with my passion and able to help people see this topic in a balanced and hopeful light The last one I mentioned, hopeful, because if you don't give people hope, they won't keep on going. They won't make the changes that you hope that they will. So hopefully just by using those sustainability pillars, just to talk about my own life, you can see it's not just an academic topic, to bring it down to earth. It's the way that we as humans work. Sustainability is a key concern, our communities, our country, organizations. So it really is fundamental. So at 6P, we do encourage our team members to constantly learn, just as you are today, making themselves better and pushing and learning more, not just because it makes them more valuable to clients, but it makes them more interested in their life. And one of the things we have learned on learning, to use the word 6 times in a row, is that one of the best ways is to hear about stories, is to listen intently to stories of others, to see what's working for them. And even though what we're about to hear this afternoon may not be exactly the same as what you're facing, the principles, I'm sure, are something you can draw from. So as we hear from Dairy Farmers of Canada, Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, and Bayer Canada, I'm sure you will be able to just bring principles into your own situation. And just lastly, recent research from CCFI, which has excellent research, showed that half of Canadians identify the environment as one of the top concerns in their life, not just around food, but in their life. So it's good we're paying attention to this. So today we'll learn about adjusting and evolving to meet those consumer needs and interests, which ultimately keep all of us moving. And as a representative of 6P, just want to say thank you very much for being able to have this opportunity to introduce ourselves and be a small part of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Brent. I'll ask Pamela to unmute herself and share her webcam and screen. And just a note too that this session, we're going to hear from all 3 of our leaders, experts under sustainability, and we'll do a Q&A at the end of the session. And so you can send your questions throughout as they come to mind as you hear from the speakers, but we will do a roundtable Q&A at the end. So Pamela is going to be our first speaker. This is a huge honor for us here. So Pamela Nalewachuk is the Vice President of Marketing, Strategic Business Development with the Dairy Farmers of Canada. As we probably all know, within being in the agri-food system, DFC really is a leader in agri-food sustainability work. I'm very pleased to have her here to share their story with us. So with that, Pamela, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Brent, for the introduction, and thank you to our hosts and the Canadian Agri Marketing Association for inviting me here today. And just to tell you a little bit more about Dairy Farmers of Canada and the efforts and how we're working collaboratively towards our marketing goals. For those of you who are not familiar with Dairy Farmers of Canada, we're a national advocacy and promotional organization representing Canadian dairy farmers across the country. We work on behalf of dairy farmers, and so they can concentrate on what they do best, and that is producing high quality, nutritious milk safely and sustainably. In addition to that, you might be familiar with the Blue Cow logo, and that is that logo that's found on many Canadian dairy products in retail, food service, and hotel restaurants. High quality in terms of influence now in regards to its equity, but also in Canadians when they purchase Canadian dairy products. Consumers, let's begin. I think it's important for us to talk about the consumer, and they're changing. Buying behaviors are shifting due to the growing influence of, we're all there, young millennials and Gen Z, and the influence that they have on Gen Pop. So over the past 3 years, we've been shifting our approach as part of our marketing efforts with the consumers at the heart of our actions. And what does that mean? Well, these days, marketing is no longer about demographics. It's about psychographics. It's not just about targeting people of a certain age, gender, and income bracket, but also about understanding how they perceive your brand and what motivates their purchasing behavior. We concluded extensive nationwide research to understand the trends and influences of Canadian consumers as it relates to dairy and the dairy industry. And 2 waves were conducted across Canada, participating from coast to coast. Our research shows that these consumers shop and buy based on their values, and many of you have likely done this type of research. But we see that there's a misalignment of those values with dairy due to the lack of understanding and how the industry actually functions. We know that people have less knowledge about on-farm. When it comes to food, they feel a great sense of responsibility towards the future of our planet. We've identified 4 preoccupations, which all associated to their values. First, we want to know more about what's in their food and they consume and where it comes from. Second, they want to know if the animals are treated well and how. Third, they want to know if it was produced in a socially responsible way. And lastly, does it support the economy and farmers in Canada? Dairy farmers of Canada have noticed that we're in a unique position and we can speak to all those concerns. Our campaigns aim to empower Canadian millennials and consumers and the younger generation, Gen Z, by addressing the questions of the value of dairy and the dairy industry and promote the hard work of our dairy farmers by giving them information, fact-based, simple messaging on what they need to know to confidently be able to consume dairy as per their value systems. But I go further than that in terms of using the fact-based information in a simple way so that it's easily repeatable. And basically, if they're faced with conversations, that they're able to engage in conversations. The dairy industry is evolving, and that old stereotype that farmers are stuck in the past is outdated. There's a new generation of dairy farmers that are emerging. And that is in both forward thinking and they're also technologically savvy. The most recent census of agriculture shows that the average age of the workforce is trending downward. And while the level of education attainment is trending upward, and that is between, we've seen 2011 and 2016. So these new generation of dairy farmers, they're breathing life into that profession. They're bringing with them new insights and the most up-to-date educational perspectives. They're implementing new skills and approaches on the farm and sharing that with their family. And they're also adopting new technologies and approaches and working closely with nature and animals in a more sustainable way. But it's not to say that dairy farmers have never done that. They just continue to do and want to do more. And they're active on social as well in sharing their knowledge. And these dairy farmers, we call them dairy farmers of tomorrow. And they're able to better connect with today's changing consumers because of sharing those same values. Our sector is improving on sustainability, and that is through research, the adoption of new practices, and by developing partnerships with other stakeholders. But this is not new. As I said, it's an ongoing process. Dairy farmers have invested interest in sustainability on their farms, their animals, and their land, and many farms have been, as we know, passed on from generation to generation. Moreover, dairy farmers are citizens of the planet too. They want to ensure the health of this planet is much more, as we all do, and more use of technologies, where some of them are adapted across the country. So what the next generation of dairy farmers is able to do is only possible because of the hard work of the dairy farmers who have come before them, and they want to continue to do more. So this foundation is what makes dairy farmers one of the most trusted professions in Canada. And it's on par with doctors. So yes, I did say that. Dairy farmers have the trust of many consumers, but let's understand, we can't take anything for granted, and we need to keep on earning that trust. And that is the way that it is done, through providing facts and solid information. And research shows that standards is the topic that has the most potential to shift consumers' attitudes towards dairy. Standards influence Canadians and is the most credible and relevant to them, whether it's standards pertaining to food safety, animal welfare, or environment. And in order to back up our work and campaign messages, we have a quality assurance program, and it's called ProAction. It's to demonstrate the industry's excellence in key areas and to document our own progress. So it's a mandatory program that all milk producing Canada follows ProAction. Farms are assessed by qualified, independent third-party validators, allowing the public to be sure that everything that on farm is working to uphold those high standards. The program has 6 modules covering milk quality, animal care, traceability, biosecurity, food safety, and of course the environment. And the environment actually is the module, the final piece of that puzzle, which came into effect this September, and making ProAction now a complete program. And this will continue to evolve over time as we implement new technologies and standards to the industry. So how do we leverage ProAction? Well, it provides us the proof points for Canadian dairy farmers' hard work. And we use that in all our marketing efforts because it serves as quantifiable, system-wide proof points of what we do. The Blue Cow logo is the consumer-facing symbol of our industry, and it's known for its 100% Canadian quality milk. And that's how Canadians are able to identify dairy products. They can trust those products that are made with milk that meets ProAction's stringent standards. And we've launched a number of campaigns to address concerns on different topics that the new consumer often has surrounding farming, linking to the pillars of ProAction. We created messages that remind consumers of milk standards and how Canadian dairy farmers live by those standards every day. We've ensured that there's a visibility on many different media channels, from traditional media, such as TV, to newer media like digital and social, but many platforms, and as well to the point of sale advertising in store. And that goal is to reach consumers in as much possible ways through their path to purchase, making sure that they see these messages whenever they're at that crossroads. Cumulatively, our campaigns have reached over 82% of the Canadian population. Digital ads are served more than 930 million times over the year. And today that Blue Cow logo is recognized as one of the top 3 most influential and trusted logos in Canada. And it has made a significant gain in both brand equity, which today stands at 89%. Our current core strategy is aligned to the broader One DFC mission, and that dairy farmers are naturally committed to sustainability and the environment. The strategy enables us to fully reach out and engage in dialogue with Canadians, and that includes and extends beyond consumers, all working together to deploy that One DFC voice across internal departments and external platforms through curated content on sustainability across the chain of influence. This all aligning to the message and campaign tactics that aim to have a greater impact with Canadians, educate, and further drive meaning to the Blue Cow logo and their strong reputation of dairy farmers. In terms of partnerships with processors, retailers, and HRI, we are moving from tactical to strategic partnerships, and that is to drive incremental consumption and net growth to the category. So what does this mean? Well, this means developing innovative programs that deliver both to both producers and our partners across the industry. We're promoting dairy messaging in our strategic partnerships and continuing to place strong emphasis on the visibility of where their dairy comes from. And that is in food service, promotions, on packaging, as well as on shelves. In our current Here for Tomorrow campaign, that I'll show you a little bit later, we have partnered with leading environmental organizations to further demonstrate the sector's commitment to sustainability. Another way is we're being proactive in reaching our target through different types of channels. As I mentioned, social is one of the most important areas in order for us to communicate. And it's not just about it's not about a campaign that is then cut down. It's really about making sure that the specific information of what we're trying to convey is actually relatable. So we continue to stay on top of new channels, ensuring relevancy with the segment that we are coveting. And last, we're also taking advantage of digital personalization. These are some of the latest tools and approaches to develop a digital relationship with online users that we've heard some of our earlier speakers. And we're able to personalize those communications. And that is to be able to drive higher engagement and having our targets spend more time with the content. And that is as well to consume more of our content where they are interested in. Well, how have we been doing? We can't talk to consumers about sustainability if we're not making progress and towards it ourselves. Today, our dairy sector is one of the lowest footprints in the world. That's on a per liter basis, and it continues to decrease. On a per liter basis, milk's carbon footprint is less than one half of the global average, meaning Canadian dairy is one of the most efficient dairy sectors in the world. From 1990 to 2016, the carbon footprint of a liter of Canadian milk has decreased by 23%. And in just 5 years, our carbon footprint decreased by 7%, our water consumption decreased by 6%, and our land use decreased by 11%. Dairy farming is also responsible for less than 1% of Canada's total greenhouse gas emissions, and dairy farming uses 0.02% of Canada's renewable freshwater supply and 2.9% of Canada's agricultural land. And so those are the type of facts that we share with consumers. Consumers acknowledge the importance of community and mutual support. And this is observed in the growth in Canada Pride. The Buy Canadian and Protect Canada movement that we've seen rise up. We have that blue cow logo, that's our symbol. And we partner with leading Canadian brands to showcase the blue cow logo on their products in order to help consumers identify local food products. We know the pandemic has propelled us towards an even greater sense of well-being, completely challenging the notion of healthy living today and in the future. So we do work with human nutrition experts to promote the healthful addition of dairy in diets. Dairy foods such as milk, cheese, yogurt contain essential ingredients including vitamin A and D, zinc, and protein, which support immune function. Consumers are looking for functional products that have added benefits, and as we know, dairy has exceptional value. And with home now, a lot of it is being about well-being, convenient, a lot of people cooking from home, and there's a lot of trends showing that that will continue. We'll continue to see the importance of social, economic, and environmental sustainability, and concerns this will be all including food. And consumers will demand and are demanding more transparency. They're more attuned to the environmental impact of companies, and they want to deal with companies and brands that are progressive in their social values. Corporate social responsibility is just part of those core values, and stakeholders are being faced to communicate them and on how they expect to achieve those goals. There's also heightened concern about food quality and safety as well. So where do we go from here? We're focused on continuing our commitment for the future and to do more on sustainability. Our board has adopted sustainability as one of the top 5 objectives this year. And our goal is to ensure that Canadians' views and interests in protecting the environment are reflected in our farming practices, and pro-action is our standards. And that's mandatory on all Canadian farms, meeting some of the world's most stringent standards and practices. We also have established a sustainability committee comprised of experts from across the country. And this committee will support the development of a national environmental objective that considers the range of steps and actions taken by Canadian dairy farmers and measurable actions to report our progress over time. And last, research and innovation. And it's a sector that's always been a global leader in research and innovation. And we plan to continue this strong legacy of this, to continue to identify new ways to improve sustainability, and that is for future generations. We'll also continue to showcase these efforts in our future campaigns. But before I go, I'd like to leave you with 2 clips. A recent campaign on sustainability. It's a harmonized campaign that brings together partnerships and then showing you how it comes to life in a consumer message. I thank you for your time and look forward to answering any questions. Over back to you.
Farming in Canada isn't for the faint of heart. It takes perseverance to live and work the land here. It takes people who know that if you want the land to support you, you have to take care of it. It takes glass half full kind of people, those willing to sow today what others will reap tomorrow. It takes knowing that if you want this land to be here for your family and your family's family, you need to raise more than a healthy herd. You need to raise the bar on how sustainable we can be. That's intrinsic to our farmers' values. For Canadian dairy farmers, doing enough just isn't good enough. We want to do better. We want to do more. That's why innovative regional recycling programs are helping some family farms meet their unique sustainability goals. Other farmers are conserving wetlands with partners in environmental protection, and many farmers are finding more ways to promote farmland biodiversity through planting trees and plants. Taking Canadian farms to their cleanest, safest, and most sustainable is the driving force behind our environmental milestones. For dairy farmers, being a steward of the land means caring for it, to farm in ways that have a positive impact on all of Canada. Even the parts our boots don't tread every day. Through green technology, investing in research that leads the way to sustainable ideas, and scholarship programs for student leaders in environmental sciences. We're committed to doing more today because we're here for tomorrow.
What are dairy farmers doing for the planet?
Canadian dairy farmers are global leaders in sustainable farming. Here are examples of what helps. On my farm, we're conserving wetlands.
Here, we've been planting trees and plants for biodiversity.
And some farms use more innovative technologies to reduce emissions. And not stopping there.
Caring for our planet, that's dairy farming forward.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for that. So much to unpack there, so much good stuff that DFC is doing. Thank you. Look forward to the question and answer period in a little bit. I'll ask Brian now to unmute himself and share his webcam and his screen. I want to introduce our next presenter, who's Brian Tracy. Brian is the Government and Industry Affairs Lead for a company you may have heard of, the Crop Science Division of Bayer Canada. Bayer is obviously a very important player within the agri-food sustainability space, and I'm very pleased to have Brian tell his story today. So I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
All right. Well, thank you, Robert, for the kind introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about Bayer's contribution to sustainable agriculture. To set the stage, and trying to get to my next slide. Here we go. Sorry about that. But just to set the stage and provide a little bit of context, let's start by taking a look at the global greenhouse gas emissions landscape. I pulled this data from Environment and Climate Change Canada from their website. This is, as you can see, 2018 data. 2018 is the latest report pre-pandemic, and so I thought it'd be the most accurate for discussion today. You can see on the left side of this slide that global greenhouse gas emissions are up 23% from 2005 to 2018. And if you look on the right side, you can see that China is leading the pack with 26% share of global greenhouse gas emissions. And this is followed by the United States at roughly 13, and then Europe at roughly 8. And so taken together, these three regions alone are responsible for 50% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. And so if you're counting, it's 47%. But don't worry. Canada did make the leaderboard. We are top 10, and we are responsible, you can see at the bottom, responsible for 1.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Now, because we're talking agriculture today, according to the United Nations, agriculture is responsible for 18% of those emissions. And so again, this is taken from a 2018 data set. Meanwhile, here in Canada, agriculture is responsible for 10% of national emissions, which is a good story. So we have a bit of a smaller footprint than the average global emissions. And so 10% of that, you're looking at 0.15% emissions from Canadian agriculture as a whole. So by now, probably some of you are asking yourselves, should we even worry about greenhouse gas emissions here in Canada? And I think we all know that the short answer to that is yes. We all live on the same planet. We are all impacted by the extreme weather events that we've been witnessing. And so really, we're all in this together. It's about getting to net zero emissions by 2050 to limit the rise in average global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. And so, if we take a global view, this is where we really see that we're all in this together and we all have a problem. Agriculture is at a crossroads. Some would say that agriculture is at the epicenter of global changes. In fact, again, according to the United Nations, by 2050, we will need to increase food production by 50% in order to meet the demand of a growing population. At present, roughly 10% of the planet's surface is used for crop production. Yet we expect arable land to decrease by 20% over that same time frame. Sadly, tonight, roughly 700 million people will go to bed hungry. However, as the 5th largest exporter of grain in the world, Canada absolutely has a role to play. So the question is, what are we doing as a company? So as a leading tech provider in agriculture, we bring technology to farmers across 5 different technology platforms. I've been with the company for 20 years, and I can tell you when I started, we were pretty much selling seed and Roundup. Today, we bring best-in-class genetics to help plants resist disease and tolerate drought. We bring new traits to manage bugs and weeds. We bring crop protection products to help the farmer manage their seed investment. We bring biologicals. These are microorganisms that we use as a seed treatment to improve water and nutrient uptake more efficiently. And the last one is we bring digital tools to enable precision agriculture. And so these technology platforms enable us to set targets and make public our commitments to sustainability, which brings us to our plan. Now, some of you may have heard about our 30-30-100 plan. This fits with our vision of health for all and hunger for none. And it aligns with a number of the UN SDGs, and you can see the little boxes at the bottom of this slide. In short, this is a commitment to reduce field greenhouse gas emissions by 30%, to reduce our environmental impact by 30%, and to empower over 100 million smallholder farmers around the world. And so if we look at this in just a little bit more detail, to reduce field greenhouse gas emissions like CO2 and their equivalents like nitrogen dioxide and methane, we need to start thinking about how do we reduce the number of times a farmer goes into a field. Practices like no-till farming, fewer pesticide and fertilizer sprays, planting a cover crop to capture some of that CO2, and also bring to market biologicals that can fix nitrogen from the air. These are practices that come to mind. Now, in addition to reducing our field greenhouse gas emissions from our farmer customers, we've also committed to go carbon neutral in our own operations by 2030. Now, I apologize, this slide is a bit busy, so I'll walk you through the top 3 elements. First one is we've committed to purchasing 100% of our electricity from renewable sources by 2030. We've committed to working with the CDP supply chain initiative to reduce indirect emissions from both upstream and downstream supply chain partners. Whatever is left over, we plan to offset those remaining emissions through our carbon pilot program. And I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. Now, in terms of reducing our environmental impact by 30%, this is all about reducing our inputs like pesticides and fertilizer and water. So biotech traits like herbicide tolerance and insect resistance can reduce pesticide use. Precision agriculture through our climate platform is enabling farmers to transition from broadcast spraying regimes to spot weed treatments and targeted fertilizer use. We're also bringing short stature corn to market that will require fewer inputs overall. And so thanks to our climate platform, we're now beginning to treat the farm by the square meter rather than by the whole field. We're trying to match genetics with soil moisture and soil composition. And early results are suggesting that, the farmers' low productivity areas in their field, maybe it's best to return that part of the field to nature rather than throwing more inputs at it. And so this brings in a bit of a biodiversity lens to it as well, which is pretty exciting. In terms of our improving the lives of 100 million smallholder farmers, this focus is mainly on low to middle income countries. And so in the interest of time, I would invite you to visit our website to look at all the cool stuff that we're doing in that space. Which brings me to the carbon pilot program. And so if you Google Bayer carbon pilot program, this is pretty much what shows up. There's obviously some more details there, but last year we launched our carbon pilot program in the United States and Brazil that included roughly 1,000 farmer participants covering about 500,000 acres. And, in short, we incentivize farmers to adopt climate smart practices, and we'll pay them to do so. And so we'll pay $3 per acre per year to adopt no-till farming. Pay $6 if they plant a cover crop to capture that carbon. And if they employ both practices, we'll pay $9 per acre per year. And so we verify carbon removal and we resell it back into the carbon market to reduce our own carbon footprint as a company. That's the model anyway. That's why we're calling it a pilot. We haven't quite figured it out yet, but we're working on it. So that speaks to what I was just saying a little bit earlier. Now here in Canada, we're doing our market analysis as we speak to better understand the opportunity to adopt a similar model here in our backyard. And so for today, I would say, please stay tuned. More to come on that one. Okay, so this is my last slide. Going back to the front, understanding agriculture is at the epicenter of global changes. What is the path forward? Well, as an optimist, I would say that we have produced a lot more with less over the past 80 years. And so if you look at the picture on the right side here, each plot represents 10 bushels of yield. And so you can see we've made tremendous progress. Now that's the good news. The bad news is that moving forward, we need to increase productivity by 50%. But this time we don't have 80 years, we have 28 if we're going to meet the targets set in the Paris Accord. So this will require science-based regulations domestically to foster all the innovation that we're going to need. And we also need an overall evidence-based approach to enable market access abroad. And so with that, I thank you for your time today and look forward to the Q&A a little bit later.
Thank you, Brian. I'll have you stop sharing your screen and your video and mute yourself, and we'll bring you back shortly. So at this time, I'll ask Andrea to unmute herself, share her webcam and screen as well. So our final presenter today is Andrea White. We all had the pleasure of hearing from Andrea earlier, so hopefully you're not tired of looking at her face. I'm very excited to hear about some more of the CRSB and the efforts there. Andrea is the Director of Marketing and Stakeholder Relations with CRSB. And as we know, and we heard already today, that CRSB is one of the most successful sustainability roundtables in the country that really has been successful in bringing everyone within Canada's beef supply chain together, which is not an easy thing to do. And I'm very pleased to have her share her story. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andrea.
Great, thanks, Robert. Hi, everybody. Hopefully you are not sick of seeing or hearing from me quite yet. Hopefully you can see the screen there. As Len forced me to do my little bit at the beginning, I won't spend too much time here, but really, again, we're mission is to advance the continuous improvement of Canadian beef industry sustainability through kind of 4 different areas. Our multi-stakeholder engagement, collaboration is really important, the communication piece, which I'm sure a lot of you are here for, and the science-based model. We have 3 kind of main pillars of work, which I'll go into in a few minutes. But I thought I'd start with just kind of how we define sustainability for the beef industry. So in Canada here, we have adopted the same definition as our global counterparts. There's a global roundtable for sustainable beef and then some regional roundtables around the world. So Canada was one of the first, but really we embody that environmentally sound, socially responsible, economically viable that we've all been talking about today, while prioritizing the planet, people, animals, and progress. And so you can see in the middle of that diagram there where those sustainable beef is where all of those things intersect. And we have 5 guiding principles that kind of manage all of our work. So the natural resources, of course, managing and conserving and protecting our land, water, and air. People in the community is really important. So supporting our farmers and ranchers and everybody that we've seen throughout the supply chain that are all important. Of course, animal health and welfare is really key in beef production, livestock production, the food itself. So that's food safety, it's food quality, but also things like, you know, the food waste. We know that 50% of food is wasted in Canada. So we work on all those things. And the last one is efficiency and innovation. And this is where all the research and the innovation comes to fruition. And then, you know, getting that information down to the people across the supply chain to adopt new practices for that backbone of continuous improvement. So just a bit about who we are. Again, I said we're this multi-stakeholder organization, and we really embody the whole supply chain from gate to plate, farm to fork. So you can see here all of the different logos of all of our members. So we've grown sort of from about 40 or 50 when we started in 2014, and we have about 110 now. So you can see that we've got, you know, our national and provincial beef producer organizations. Got retail and food service companies. We've got our food processors, our beef processors, you know, academic institutions, and a lot of those ag and food businesses that support the whole industry, as well as conservation, animal care groups that, you know, help guide all of our work. And so in all of our layers, our council, our board, our committees, we have representation from all of those areas in everything we do. So we make sure we're always following those 5 guiding principles, as well as every stakeholder in the chain. So just a bit about what we do, kind of have 3 main areas. The first is benchmarking. The second is our third-party certification program, which I'll go into in a little bit, and then projects. So on the benchmarking side, that's really measuring our sustainability performance of the whole industry as a whole and setting some strategic goals. certification is really around recognizing those sustainable practices and then pulling that beef through the supply chain. And then lots of projects that, of course, not only CRSB is doing, but everybody across the supply chain. A lot of our partners are doing really great work on the ground. And so we have an online project inventory on our website that kind of outlines a number of those projects. I think we have over 65 on there now. And it just really shows the breadth of all the people that are doing great work, research, and really demonstrating how all that work that's happening on the ground goes back to those strategic goals. So just a bit about our benchmarking. In 2016, we released our first benchmarking study, which really is a comprehensive look at the overall performance of the Canadian beef industry from those three pillars of environmental, social, and economic perspectives. And we do this through life cycle analyses. And this really showed, this first one that we did really showed where the industry is doing well and also identified some of the areas for improvement. So we've got here a few of the infographics that we pulled out, some of the key data points that really we've been using a lot in our communications. And I think even when we started this work, you know, before we got the results, we didn't know how valuable this was going to be for the overall communications and marketing and sort of that science backing of everything we do. So similar to what Pamela was talking about earlier, you know, this gives us our biodiversity footprint. So we know that on beef production lands, that provides 68% of the wildlife habitat capacity on only 1/3 of Canada's agricultural land. So we know that livestock production is really key to that, and the carbon cycle and all of that stuff that goes into the soil. We know that 1.5 billion tons of carbon is stored in lands used for beef production in Canada. And the one in the middle there is really the crux of the CRSB. We're all working together and we're all working towards these common goals. Similar to the dairy production, we now know what our footprint is. Again, 2.4% of Canada's total greenhouse gases. And that if you look at the global numbers, that's 0.04% of the global footprint. Very similar to dairy, it's less than half. It's probably closer to about 30-35%. So we've seen that grazing cattle is really critical to that grassland. Birds, plants, there are over 1,000 species of plants and animals that live on our grasslands where the cattle also graze. So it's all a very interconnected system. And so this assessment was really key to some of those numbers, and not only on the environment, but also the social and economic perspectives. So it's really been helpful for the industry. As I mentioned, some of the areas for improvement, we identified sort of 10 overarching goals. I'm not going to go through them all in detail, but we kind of parceled them out into the environmental, social, and economic pillars as well. So of course, everybody's thinking about greenhouse gases, climate change, the biodiversity, water, and waste. On the social side, looking at, worker safety, not only farm safety, but across the supply chain. Of course, animal care is always a key consideration, and then the economic viability of our, especially our farmers and ranchers to be able to make all those improvements and over time, but it also has to be economically viable. So, and finally, building demand for Canadian beef, which is what it's all about. As part of this work, we've really looked to kind of building on those 10 goals in our sustainability strategy, but really over the past year, we've been working hard as a whole industry, not just the CRSB. There's 7 national beef organizations that make up what we call the Canadian Beef Advisors. And so really looking at what we can do, looking towards those 2030 timelines, which align with those UN Sustainable Development Goals that our previous speaker was talking about. And so for the beef industry, we've spent a lot of time working within our organizations and a producer task force and looking at the researchers and what is possible. So we've set what we think are robust, ambitious, but still achievable goals for 2030 over the past year. So we did this in 2 phases, and you can see on the screen there, those are some of the some of the key ones that we are going to be working on. And so it covers 7 diverse areas, including GHGs and carbon sequestration, land use and biodiversity, which we know is a really important one, water quality and soil health, of course, our animal health and welfare and responsible practices around that, the people's health and safety, people on our farms and throughout our supply chain, the beef quality and food safety, and of course, all of this kind of culminates in embracing some of those innovative solutions that are going to help us drive that continuous improvement. Of course, we're talking about communications marketing today. So really from communications perspective, it was important not only to share these goals that were developed with our industry, with all our partners across the country and across the supply chain, but also, you know, to show the public and government and all these folks that were committed to that improvement piece. And so the goals were launched in 2 phases. So the first phase was in September 2020. And so we launched our GHG and the land use and animal care goals. And then the remainder were launched this past April. And really, we wanted to make sure that we had, you know, a comprehensive plan so that all of our, you know, we have many organizations across Canada that work within the beef industry. So making sure that everybody had all the same information and that we could kind of communicate this out as a concerted effort. So, you know, we had all the typical release things like a news release, and we had speaking notes for our industry folks, but we also created a content calendar so we could have a sustained communication plan. So because we had so many different diverse topic areas, we wanted to make sure that there were kind of a strategic placement on them. So we created a content calendar that we focused on one goal each week, and sort of all the organizations, while people might be posting different things, we you know, provided the infographics and images and some, you know, collaborative things there. So we were always all talking about the same thing at the same time to try and amplify that message. And I think we've all seen a lot of the coverage over the past year around this whole food system. So here in Canada, we're talking about these goals concurrently to when Canada was creating beef sustainability goals. That was also happening on a global level through our Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. So of course, the CRSB was heavily involved in that process. Some of you may be aware there was a UN Food Systems Summit, the first one in 25 years earlier this year. And so there were a lot of dialogues here in Canada and around the world involving thousands of people on lots of different tracks within that context of the whole food system. So we've done a lot of collaboration on the global scale and also within Canada and with lots of our industry partners like the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. Of course, we've probably all seen lots of the coverage this past 2 weeks around the COP26, you know, and talking about that key role of farmers and ranchers in the whole space as a solution. You know, Canada has recently come out with a methane pledge, as have many other countries. So there's certainly lots of conversation around that whole food system and not, you know, keying into very specific things. So, and I thought I'd just leave this slide with the most recent Canadian Centre for Food Integrity data, which is, you know, that there seems to be a switch in terms of what consumers are thinking around, you know, specific attributes of their food and more looking and being a little bit more aware around the whole food system as a whole. And so those intricate details are becoming less of a concern, but they are more concerned about, you know, sustainability overall. So we know we're on the right track in building these goals and really trying to drive that progress. So one of the ways that the CRSB has been focusing quite a lot of its time in the last few years has been our certification program. So I know Pamela talked about what the ProAction program for the dairy industry and for the beef industry. Ours is slightly different. It's a voluntary program right now, so it's new, it's growing, but it's really based on foundation of 2 standards, one for beef production at all those stages and also beef processing. The system enables sourcing by our retail, our food service, our restaurants, so that then they can deliver those assurances back to the consumers. So again, the end goal is to build consumer confidence through those credible, science-based claims. And really what we want to do is recognize all the great work that our farmers and ranchers and so on are doing on the ground, every day, and have been for many, many, many years. So just in terms, I won't spend too much time on how the system works. You can visit our website to learn more information, but kind of where are we now? This on the right-hand side of your screen there, you can see this is kind of where we were at in our latest annual report, which was released in September. You can see those are the folks that have already sort of committed to sourcing through the program. We've pulled 5.6 million pounds just this year alone, and only over 14 million since our program started. And considering it's only been around for about 3 years, we're pretty proud of that milestone. And I just thought I'd mention, as many of us know, those individual farmer rancher stories, people really trust our farmers and ranchers. So being able to tell those individual stories. And as I said at the top, like, sustainability means something a little tiny bit different to everybody. If you ask 10 farmers what they think, probably the premise is pretty similar, but everybody has a little bit of a different answer. So we're endeavoring to tell all those individual stories. And so we have some of these profiles on our website, and not only the farmers and ranchers, but our processors, our restaurants, our retailers are going to be on there too as the program builds. And then I thought I'd just end today with a little bit about sort of our communications strategy. As we started talking at the beginning of today's session, with Len and the team at Contact that has helped us build some of our strategy around this. That millennial and Gen X urban suburban lights, they love the taste of beef, but they're starting to feel guilty about, its impact, and they're getting bombarded with so much information in the media and social media. So we want to come up with sort of what do we want to tell people? So Canadian beef is, we want them to know that it's a responsible choice, it's good for the planet, but it also supports the farmers who contribute to all these healthy ecosystems and all these beneficial things. So, and again, the bullets here at the bottom are the proof points behind it. So we know that it's not just something that we're saying, that there's actual proof behind it. And the third-party assurance systems that are backed in our standards in the certification program really are supporting that as well. So in terms of telling the story, as I said, farmers and ranchers, they're one of our biggest assets. You can see there, that's Ann Wasker. She's the chair of our CRSB, and she ranches in Southwest Saskatchewan. We know farmers, as Pamela said, up there, farmers, doctors, one of the most trusted. And so being able to tell this whole sustainability story about the whole system through each of their unique stories is one of the best ways that we can do that. Getting to the message that beef sustainability is possible. This Guardians of the Grassland documentary, I would highly recommend you go watch it when you get off the webinar today. It's a short 12-minute film, but it's really impactful, and it just shows the importance and the integration of beef production for the benefits for our, safeguarding our grasslands. That's been identified as one of the best nature-based solutions for combating climate change. So, and one of the things that we've done is we've taken those, like I mentioned earlier, those little clips from the full documentary, thanks to our partners across the industry here, and created some short little video clips, and we're finding they really play well on our social media channels, even if we place them as organic content. And thirdly, just want to connect with those consumer values. We know, we're starting to do more and more of those social sponsor campaigns and help tell that story. We're finding that when we partner with others, for example, right now we've got this campaign in field that we're partnering with our conservation groups. And so, adds that credibility message over and above the beef industry that help tell the sustainability story. And we're finding, there's keen demand. And one of the things that was interesting to me is, we more than doubled the folks that wanted to source through our certification program. And most of that came from the restaurant food service industry, even though, restaurants were in most parts of Canada were shut down for 6 months of the year this year. So that just, tells you that there's great value in telling this story, and people want to know that, where their food is coming from and how it's raised. And so it's great to see that there's interest and they really want to help us tell that story. I thought I'd just leave us with a couple of the examples of how we've kind of integrated this following our Best of Show last year. So this Cooking by Degrees campaign was really a big collaboration between Canada Beef, the Canadian College and University Food Service Association, and the CRSB. There were a series of 16 articles featuring 16 different university and college chefs, 16 of their favorite beef recipes, and 16 beef farmer profiles, that encompassed all these different stories of sustainability. So really looking at connecting the dots between, the farm all the way to the fork. So this ran in the Toronto Star over about a 6-week period. And so we were able to get as you can see on the screen here, you were able to get a few banner ads that went with the articles. There's a landing page that lives on forever with all of the articles. So if anybody's interested in looking at those after the fact, they're still there. And, which is a great way for us. Not only could we, promote them during the campaign, but we can use them over and over again. And so it's great to be able to share that story there. So we're looking at multiple things, in this kind of vein. So this ran in the Toronto Star in the paper itself, and then of course the sponsored digital campaign went along with it. So that was just an example of one of the really successful things. And I thought I'd just end today with an example of what we have in field right now. So again, another big partnership with our conservation partners and Ducks Unlimited Canada and Nature Conservancy of Canada, as well as CRSB and our public and stakeholder engagement program at the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. So this is kind of a series of clips put together, short ones. So we had 2 segments that ran on Global and CTV and BNN. And so this is from the first one where we're talking about the importance of the grasslands, and the second segment will be coming soon, and it features Sherry Copperthorne Barnes, who is the founding chair of the CRSB, and just talking about, what does sustainability mean on her 5th generation ranch out in Alberta, and how it, helps show what we're doing, and it highlights and promotes a little bit about our certification program. So that will be coming soon, but I will leave it today with this short clip.
Now, I bet if I were to ask you to list some of the most endangered ecosystems in the world, well, you'd probably mention the rainforests, melting the Arctic ice, or maybe coral reefs. You'd be right on all counts, for sure, but one of the most endangered ecosystems in the world is right here in Canada.
The grasslands ecosystem is one of the most important ecosystems in the world, and it's also one of the most threatened. Many people don't understand or realize that our northern Great Plains and the temperate grasslands of Canada and the northern US are at risk, and that risk is mainly been through cultivation.
That are conservation organizations that are working with cattlemen and cattle producers to protect these landscapes. Canadians should be really proud to eat Canadian beef because it's protecting our native landscape.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
I will now ask, I guess you can stop sharing your screen as well, but please stay on your camera there, Andrea, and I'll ask our other 2 presenters, Brian and Pamela, to rejoin the conversation. So what's really interesting there, Andrew, is that with the cooking by degrees and connecting the dots, that's a really excellent thing. We've heard many times through research, CCFI and other research that I've been involved with or seen that people love food. They're just not so sure about agriculture. And so I think where you are connecting the dots, I think that's a very smart strategy. So we've got time for just a few questions today. If there are any additional ones that people want to send in, feel free to. I'll do my best to get them in, but I'll start this off. 15 years ago, Kelly Funky, now Cargill, she got me into agri-food marketing communication. So I owe a lot to her. And I'll remember something she said to me, I'll never forget it, is that farmers were the first environmentalists. I want to ask Pamela to start. How do you need, specifically for DFC, how do you need those farmers to participate in ensuring ongoing sustainability for your industry and really for Canada's food system as a whole?
Thanks, Robert. You know, I don't think it's an either or kind of scenario. I think that in many cases, retailers and processors have a common interest to ensuring sustainability. Dairy farmers are very keen to do their part for the greater good and have been doing so way before anybody was even talking about sustainability. And they have always been focused on it. We talk about soil regeneration that Andrea mentioned earlier, planting trees, protecting the wetlands, and it's not because no one was talking about it. So we need to recognize that dairy is a key element of the sustainable food system of the future, where its nutritional benefits, it's locally produced with a lower transportation footprint, supply management, which limits food waste by only producing enough food in order to meet that demand, and it plays an important role in carbon sequestration, so promoting biodiversity and more. So that so it's as I mentioned, it's just not an either or kind of scenario.
Andrea, kind of same question for you. So obviously with Pamela's, and I've been in awe of the ProAction program since it was launched. But Andrea, you've got a voluntary program through the CRSB as opposed to the mandatory. Can you speak to the same idea there of how you need your farmers to participate in ongoing sustainability for the beef system?
Yeah, I think I would certainly echo everything that Pamela just said. You know, farmers and ranchers have been doing the right thing for the land, the air, the animals, all of those pieces for hundreds of years. And so they're doing it because they know it's the right thing. But also, you know, we've got these three pillars. It's not just the environment. It's you know, the families and communities, and you know, that the economic piece, and sometimes that drives their decisions, not only to do the right thing for the land, but also, you know, they wouldn't still be around and producing the products in the way that they are now without that economic piece. So I think that's really important. You know, I think if you would ask any farmer or rancher, they, you know, part of their answer will be, you know, we want to leave this land, this place, this beautiful place that we've been gifted to take care of better than we inherited it. And so I think, you know, they might say it a little bit differently, but that's kind of the vein that most farmers and ranchers that I talk to talk about. You know, they're very passionate about doing the right thing and continuously improving. And, you know, that's really the backbone of our definition of sustainability.
That's a great segue for Brian. Question here for you, Brian. And it was actually interesting in your presentation, you're talking about actually paying farmers to do certain actions that are sustainable, environmentally sustainable, cover crops, and some other things. And so from a communication side, and so really, you know, we've got Andrew and Pam here that are both vertically integrated organizations and consumer brands. But with Bayer, you're kind of a step removed, right? You're more, your customers, in fact, that farmer customer. So what role do you need farmers to play in communicating sustainability to the public? Where's Bayer's stance on communicating to having your farmer customers communicate to the end consumer?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Robert. And, you know, maybe I'd start off by saying that, you know, there's no shortage of critics out there on agriculture. And so I think, you know, Andrea said it really well in her presentation. You know, farmers are, you know, really trusted, you know, in the communications landscape. And so I would say we need, you know, to put farmers in the front of the window. They need to have a voice. And, you know, they have a great story to tell. You know, I showed in the last slide on, you know, how they're producing more with a smaller environmental footprint. I mean, this didn't start, you know, with, Greta talking about sustainability. Farmers have been at this a very long time. A great story to tell, and we need to keep telling that story and amplify those messages. And my colleagues here on the screen, I think Dairy Farmers of Canada have really kind of set the bar. Really nice job with commercials that I see on TV as a citizen. And there's another initiative, the Canada Fields to Fork program. Is another example where they're actually partnering with the media, and I think we just need a lot more of that to be visible out there, because there's certainly a lot of noise.
We hear a lot about different trends within agri-food, and either coming from the industry or from the consumer. One of those trends is regenerative agriculture. And so we had a question earlier from Jay from the Canola Council of Canada when Andrea was presenting earlier today about regenerative agriculture and how that sustainability. And this probably has a place really for all of you as well. But maybe I'll just ask that question to Andrea to start, and either if Pamela or Brian, if you had something to add, feel free to. But can you talk about regenerative agriculture, Andrea, and the connection to sustainability?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't call them synonymous necessarily, but certainly a lot of the practices that our farmers and ranchers and dairy farmers too, are adopting and improving on in their operation are certainly regenerative. And you can see from some of the biodiversity numbers that we see from our benchmarking work, it shows that obviously that's happening. And having the animals on the land and the cyclical nature, the carbon cycle, and creating that habitat, those are all certainly regenerative practices. But we also talk about sustainability, not just on the environment, but some of these, the equally important pillars of the social responsibility and the economic viability. So I would say it's definitely part of the definition, but then there's these two other pieces that also need to be taken into account. And I think, a lot of the conversations we see around sustainability kind of try and pull out one thing, whether it's carbon or greenhouse gases or, this or that. And you need to look at it as the whole system working together. And it's not just one thing or the other, and you can't pick and choose what you want it to be one day or the next.
Pamela had mentioned during her presentation about simple messaging. But what's really quite ironic for all of us, and this is, I think, for anyone really that's communicating anything agri-food to an end consumer, or even within the industry itself, is that simple messaging is really important. But quite often, what we do in the food system is quite the opposite of simple. And so I'm curious for any of you, and maybe we'll start with Pamela, if you don't mind, Pamela. You talked about your 6 pillars of proaction. You mentioned facts, putting facts out into the marketplace. All of you have talked about shared values. We're citizens too. Storytelling has been talked about. So I guess let's just talk about how we can take something very complex and multifaceted, right? Sustainability is many things. And how can we, as communicators and marketers, how are we able to best communicate those things to an end consumer, where I think, Pamela, you also said at the beginning that that so many people are not really connected to where their food comes from.
Well, I mentioned that today's consumer, they're value-based decision makers. So they prefer to align themselves with those brands that align with their value system. So we mentioned that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and you constantly have to be telling your story and on the personal experience of that passion, commitment, and how it connects to the greater food focused mission. Consumers are hungry for different types of knowledge and knowledge that's going to make them feel confident about what they're consuming and purchasing. So facts, opinions, myths, we know that once it's repeated across many sources become the truth. So beliefs need nurturing. They need nurturing through assertive, positive facts. And without that, it's not human nature to assertively defend something that you don't have a strong belief in. So it's important for communications, but it needs to extend beyond consumers and tailored appropriately within the dairy value chain. So you're repeating it in many ways. It helps to shape those opinions when you use a multiple source of channels. sources that helps drive that credibility. And there's a certain quantity and there's a certain amount that you need to do. And you have to include third-party validators. It can't just be us speaking about it. You need to have that ecosystem of third party. So, whether it's, Brian or Andrea or other associations that we have that can help to bring that credibility, but and speak to that, it creates a greater reach. So this, as I said, when you need to reach beyond, and we say it's always beyond DFC, this will enable that all our segments are enabled to support and speak on behalf of dairy. So, we tell real stories about real farmers and the steps that they're taking, but in the steps that they're taking, help feed it through third party.
Excellent, thanks, Pamela. Andrea or Brian, anything to add about simple messaging and effective messaging?
I'd agree with everything Pamela just said, but at the CRSB specifically, I think that's the value of having, all of these organizations and companies from every facet of production, and including those third-party credibility builders and communicators that can help drive that message. And it's why, sort of as we evolve, we're starting to, actively partner with those folks and help them, or ask them to help us tell the story. So for us, with respect to our certification program, not only are there there's the robust standards and all those folks were involved in developing all that, there's the third-party auditing system, but also, we have all those folks at our table that, we're a small organization, and with very, limited budgets, much more limited probably than the Dairy Farmers of Canada, but, helping get the tools and the information to our restaurant and our retail partners, that they have that direct connection with the consumers, and they have the amazing marketing departments that can, put that into the story and providing the, getting that connection directly to their consumers and Canadian customers to link, and again, linking it back to that farming story and the trust factors.
Yeah, Robert, I can certainly add to that. I agree with everything that's been said. And in fact, I get up every day defending a science-based approach or an evidence-based approach. But the first lesson that we're taught, when you're talking with the public, is don't go and debate data. That's the last thing that it doesn't work. It's been proven. And so I think with some of the commercials that we're seeing on TV, with my colleagues here today, that personal touch, that emotional connection is so important. And again, I would agree, there's so much misinformation out there. But again, Robert, as an optimist, I would say that, we actually have the public and the media pointing to the science behind vaccines. We have the public and the media pointing to the science of climate change. How can we get the public and the media pointing to the science behind innovation in agriculture? And hopefully we'll get there sooner rather than later.
Great. With that, just in the interest of time, Pamela, Brian, and Andrea, I really want to thank you on behalf of the entire CAMA family. We are going to, no gifts for you, I'm afraid, other than we're going to be a donation in each of your names to the Canadian Agribusiness Education Foundation, their Pathways to Agri-Food Scholarships. So CABIF, a lot of us are aware of CABIF. They award 7 $2,500 scholarships annually to Canadian students who are entering or currently pursuing agri-food related program at a Canadian college, university, or institution. So I do want to thank you all again for just taking the time to present and speak about how your all organizations are leading the charge with Canadians' agri-food sustainability. And I want to thank everyone that has attended the event today. And again, for tomorrow, I hope to see you all virtually at CAMA. and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.